Hey everyone, and welcome back to Minnesota Airsoft. In today's video, we are going to talk about a topic that many of you have requested for us to do, and that is the best loadout for those of you who are new to the sport of airsoft. You know, maybe you saw an airsoft video on YouTube, or one of your friends got you interested, but when you started looking at airsoft guns and gear, you just got overwhelmed with the amount of information and variety of guns on today's market. All you really care about is having a decent gun that's worth your money and not gonna break easily, shoots good, and can maybe fit some upgrades in the future if you indeed like your first airsoft experience. Well, that's what this video is here to help you with. This video is not gonna show you how to perfectly tune your motor's AOE or shim the gears for maximum performance. This is gonna give you the basics of airsoft, like what platforms, features, gear, and other related things you should be looking for in your first airsoft loadout. Without further ado, let's get right into it with our first topic, the different types of airsoft guns. There are tons of different airsoft guns, and I'm sure you already know this if you visited any airsoft website. But nearly all of these airsoft guns fit into four main categories. There's spring, gas, electric, and HPA. Think of these as the four elements of airsoft. Every single gun operates on one of these methods, and it's important that you know how each one works before you make a purchase. We are not going to go too in-depth on three of them, seeing as that would be a separate video in itself. Beginning with spring guns, they're typically the cheapest, and they provide a single shot for each manual cycle. Shotguns and snipers are the most common spring guns used in airsoft games, but there are spring variants of every gun available. These are not recommended for airsoft games because you get one shot and they typically have very low magazine capacity. Gas guns are very common for secondaries, and this is because it allows for a very rapid or somewhat explosive cycle of the gun, which is very useful for a handgun and pushing the slide back in a realistic manner. Gas guns are notorious for having mechanical issues, wildly inconsistent feet per second, very low magazine capacity, and extremely expensive mags. Again, these are not recommended for any beginner airsofter. Now, HPA, or high pressure air. This is, in my opinion, the best performing system airsoft has at the moment. It uses tanks similar to paintball and hoses to power the gun. These systems are incredibly expensive, seeing as you need a gun, HPA system, tank, regulator, and a hose just to get started, and these can add up to about $600 for even a budget system. These are not recommended for beginners for this reason alone. Now, the most common out of these systems for airsofters is most likely the automatic electric or AEG category. These make up the bulk of airsoft primaries, and they operate using a battery and gearbox. When you plug the battery in and pull the trigger, a motor spins, pulls back a piston in your gearbox, and then releases this piston to plunge air forward in the cylinder and pushes the BB from your hop-up down your barrel. This all happens extremely fast and will sound like one coherent noise. Now, it's not too important that you understand all of these mechanical properties in the gearbox as a beginner, so don't worry too much about the specs inside of them. So now that you have a decent understanding of what each platform operates like, and that we recommend AEGs to all beginners, how do you know which AEG to choose? After you've made your way to Amped Airsoft or evike.com, you are immediately shown dozens of awesome looking airsoft guns ranging from Glocks, M4s, AKs, various SMGs, and even snipers. How in the world are you going to choose one that you like the best and that performs amazing on the airsoft field? The first thing to realize is that you should not base your decisions solely on looks or because you liked a certain gun in a video game. Although it is important and fun to choose a gun that looks cool, I would say some of the guns that look the coolest are also some of the worst performing guns, and they'll typically just break. Instead of aesthetics, you should be looking for a few specific types of airsoft guns, and these are based on the most common platforms in airsoft. By far, the most recommended platforms in our opinion for your first airsoft gun are M4s and AKs. Though the AK is a great platform and many people choose them, I've personally never owned one and thus don't really have much experience on them, so I'll stick to what I do know, and that is M4s. Regardless of this slight bias, I strongly suggest getting some variety of an M4 instead of an AK, and I'll explain why. First of all, M4s are the most common and have been the most used platform for countless years now. This means that you will not only have the largest possible selection of manufacturers, designs, and the biggest price range, but you'll also have this large variety to choose from if you decide to upgrade your gun at a later point. M4s have thousands of upgrade parts designed for them, whereas something like a FAMAS has hardly any, and you'll likely run into issues seeing as you're new to this whole airsoft thing. Just ignore the unique guns like the FAMAS and stay on the paved road to avoid any headaches. Trust me. So besides avoiding headaches and having the largest possible selection of guns and upgrades to choose from, maybe you're still not convinced that you should choose an M4 over that awesome airsoft gun you've had your eyes on for a while now. Well, there's another factor that supports buying an M4, and that is the fact that you can find some of the best performing airsoft guns in the M4 category. High-end manufacturers choose this platform because it has been improved upon for years and years, meaning they're typically the most consistent and best performing airsoft guns out of the box. Now don't get me wrong, you will still have brands like Lancer Tactical that have a tendency to produce poor performing AEGs, but that is just how any cheap or budget brand is regardless of the platform. If you're on a budget when you're starting out, an M4 will likely give you the best shot at getting a great performing rifle when compared to other platforms, and you'll maximize the performance for your dollar. Okay, if we're all on the same page, we know that some form of AEG that's based on the M4 platform is what we are recommending to you as a beginner. Well, that's great and all, but there are still hundreds of different guns if you only use these two things to base your decision on. So now what? Now we look at quality manufacturers who are reputable and make good airsoft guns. Airsoft obviously has tons of brands to choose from, and it's not as easy as stay away from Company A or Company B always makes amazing products that are worth every penny. We all wish it were this easy, but it's just not, and that's why we're here to help you. To keep it simple, the manufacturer that you choose matters a lot less than you think. All brands exist for a reason, even if some of us wish they didn't. Again, this topic could be a video in itself, but to keep things simple, here are some brands that we recommend the most, as well as some that we wouldn't necessarily suggest when starting out. First, we have Krytac. Many airsoft experts would defend that Krytac is an amazing M4 AEG right out of the box. A Krytac M4 is what I personally use as a backup to my HPA setup, and it is a crazy nice airsoft gun for those who want to start off on the premium end of rifles. They have a few different models to choose from, and they are growing very fast due to their success. We recommend their Mark II Trident lineup, which has guns like the SPR and CRB, because we have personally used and tested these guns and can attest to their great performance with no upgrades necessary. We suggest getting a 7.4 or 11.1 volt LiPo battery to take full advantage of these guns. Next, we have G&G Armament. When I started airsoft years ago, my first real airsoft gun was the G&G Combat Machine CM16 Raider. This is still one of the most popular airsoft guns for a reason. They're affordable, reliable, and perform pretty decent for the price point. G&G is one of the larger manufacturers on the market, and they have tons of guns to choose from within the M4 platform. Though we haven't owned any of their guns, this is one of, if not the largest airsoft manufacturers in the world, and they are known for their quality while still being affordable. Sometimes their prices can actually be off-putting because they seem just too good to be true. They make so many airsoft guns, and they're all typically great for beginners because they're affordable and don't break the bank, while still delivering a good performing and reliable airsoft rifle that you can count on. JG is a brand that SEMA produces, and they're also fantastic starter guns. Now, some brands that we would suggest to try and avoid if at all possible. These are all personal preferences, and I'm sure others have had great experiences with these companies. That's fine, but this is our personal recommendations. First up, we have KWA. We have owned many KWA guns, ranging from their M93R Raffica pistol to their newer PTS Mega Arms MKM gas blowback rifle, which set us back a cool $450. Every single one of their products we've tried has had some sort of issue or broke down very early on. Their gas blowback rifle we own didn't even shoot through an entire 40-round magazine before it broke down and has been to their repair shop a total of 3 times now, and the problems still persist. Overall, KWA seems to have great ideas and amazing designs that look pretty unique, but they really lack in the performance side of things. Keep this in mind if you're looking to spend a pretty penny on their guns. Lancer Tactical. Now we say Lancer Tactical with a little asterisk next to it. They're known for their budget-friendly guns, which are prone to having issues out of the box. This is quite common for budget-friendly guns, but Lancer Tactical has this stigma behind it, and they're just kinda cheap and not the most reliable. Finally, we have Angel Customs. Angel Customs is Evike's own brand of upgrades, ranging from trigger units to inner barrels. They have always been known as the cheapest upgrades you can buy, and they are notorious for having fitment issues or not even working at all. We've personally had this happen to us a few years back when we decided to buy their 1911 hop-up unit, and it didn't even come close to fitting. I believe they're becoming better, but they're just not quite worth the money yet, in our opinion. Alrighty, so you were able to choose and now own a reliable airsoft gun from a reputable brand, but this is not where you should stop looking for quality airsoft items. One of the most overlooked components of airsoft are the BBs that you're using. Everyone thinks the same thing starting out, and that's, well, I can't reuse them, so why would I pay more for less BBs when they just weigh a tiny bit more? If you want your airsoft gun to shoot its best, it is imperative that you do not cheap out on the BBs that you're using. We'd recommend buying high quality BBs from companies like 6mm Plastic or Crytek to avoid defective BBs that could rip your bucking or misfeed and cause various issues or jams in the middle of a game. But do not overspend when you're starting out. You do not need BBs like the tiny little bottles from Novrich, and any weight over 0.3 grams will likely just be a waste of money unless you're sniping. We would recommend starting off with 0.25 gram BBs for rifles, and either the same 0.25 gram BBs or even 0.20 gram BBs if you are using a sidearm. Heavier weights mean that they fly straighter more consistently and resist any outside force acting on the BB, such as wind. Heavier weights also give you much tighter groupings, so if you're looking to snipe people from 200 plus feet away, you really want 0.3 gram or higher BBs to do this. Now let's talk about some gear that we would recommend beginners getting. At your first airsoft game, you'll likely show up to see people in jeans and hoodies, as well as people who look like they just came home from a military deployment. Don't bother spending hundreds of dollars on this stuff to look cool and fit in. Nobody cares what you are wearing. Good teammates are those who are more focused on the game at hand than winning a fashion contest. This being said, there are some things that we would recommend spending a little extra on up front. The first being eye protection, which is commonly referred to as eye pro. This is a must, and you shouldn't even think about skimping on eye pro. Just spend the extra $25 on a durable, full seal pair of goggles to prevent fogging, or even get a full mask like a dye paintball mask. I play in the hot and muggy Minnesota summers, and fogging is the biggest battle other than the enemy team shooting at me. There's anti-fog spray that can help with this, but dual pane goggles are very nice for avoiding this issue. Please do not buy cheap goggles from Amazon. Many of them have been shown to be falsely advertising their safety ratings, and your eyesight is not worth saving a few bucks. The next pieces of gear that we would recommend to you are a comfy pair of combat boots and a pair of comfortable pants. Bonus if you get a pair with built-in knee pads. For the boots, you should focus on having something that will protect your ankle in the case you trip. Outdoor fields are very unpredictable and often have tall grass covering dips in the terrain, meaning you can roll your ankle very easily. A tall combat boot can prevent this and also provide protection against something like thorns or broken cover like splintered wood and metal. Get waterproof boots if you play outdoors, and no, water resistant is not the same as waterproof. For the pants, we would suggest something like the 511 tactical pants with ripstop because they're very durable, lightweight, affordable, and have tons of pockets for carrying various things like speed loaders and BBs. I personally chose a pair of pants that fit all of this criteria, in addition to having built-in knee pads for when I'm kneeling behind cover. You'd be surprised how much you'll end up crawling to the next set of cover, and knee pads help save your knees regardless of whether the floor is made up of concrete or coarse dirt with rocks. Other items that we would recommend for beginners to purchase are gloves, spare high-cap magazines, a gun case, a duffel bag to carry all of your gear in, and a face mask to protect your face and mouth from BBs. Quick note on the gloves. We found that in addition to military-style gloves and commonly used mechanics gloves, dirt biking gloves work awesome for airsoft, seeing as they're thin and grippy on the inside of your hand, while having some protection on the outside to protect your knuckles from BBs. Another common question we get at Minnesota Airsoft is which accessories should we get for our guns? My answer to this is honestly none if you're just starting. Just go play for the first time and then find out what would make it a more enjoyable experience or make you a better player. Whether that's a red dot, sling, foregrip, or suppressor, they can all be added later, and spending as much of your initial budget on your primary is way more important than having an abundance of accessories on your rifle. One accessory that we cannot live without is a single point sling. We use this to simply take some of the weight off of our arms when walking to the field, during play, and to also make sure that the gun never accidentally drops from our hands into a pile of dirt. The last category we would like to share with all of you who are new to the sport is just some random tips that we wish we knew when we started playing. The first thing is bring tons of water. If you're playing right, you'll go through a lot of it. Another thing that we want beginners to understand is the rules in Airsoft because they are incredibly important to follow. I'm not going to do an entire safety briefing, but never take your eye protection off in the middle of a game, even if you have an itch or are fogging up. Walk to the staging area and do it there. Losing your eyesight permanently is not worth it. Another thing is barrel bags or barrel covers. Always keep these on until you're told to take them off. Airsofters take safety very seriously. Finally, I wish when I started, I saved the money that I spent on my secondary and just spent it on a nicer primary. I had a very heavy steel-framed WE high capa that I never used in games, and I really wish I spent that $130 on a better M4. You will very rarely use a secondary, especially if you play outdoors. It's silly to waste your money when an extra $100 or so can completely change your primary from meh to very high end. This kind of ties into the last tip, but there's a motto in Airsoft that resonates with everything you will buy. Buy nice or buy twice. Cheap stuff sucks and eventually breaks, whereas nicer items that only cost a touch more will last a very long time and perform amazing. Oh yeah, one more tip. Have fun. Don't take Airsoft too seriously. You're there to have fun, so do what you think makes the sport more fun and just go with it. Well, that wraps it up for this video. I really hope you learned something from this, and please feel free to leave any questions you have down below in the comment section. We're here to help you out, and I'm sure various others will see your comment and chime in with suggestions or solutions. Thank you all so much for watching, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.